Thank you for listening to the Western Ag Life Podcast. Welcome to another Western Ag Life Voices podcast, where we celebrate the people that make up the rich fabric of the Western lifestyle. Please do us a favor and thank the sponsors, because without them, we couldn't bring you these free podcasts.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Paul Ramirez with the Western Ag Life Podcast. It's a beautiful day here in Arizona. Sure are needing some rain, but it will rain eventually. But we do need some rain. Just want to give a little kudos out this week. We're always trying to promote people in our industry and people that we do business with, and that's one of the purposes of this podcast. And I have to tell you, I had a wonderful experience this week. I had my pickup truck detailed by Average Joe out of Vail, Arizona. Average Joe is on Facebook. And if you want to have your pickup, motorhome, car, Escalade, whatever you have, you want to get it detailed, I would highly recommend Joe. He did a fantastic job. I tell you, I had vehicles detailed before, but had never quite had one detailed like he did. I mean, he really gets in there and cleans the vehicle. And he was at my house. I thought it would be a 2 or 3 hour job. He was at my house about 7 hours. So if you do want to have a good vehicle detailed, I would highly recommend Average Joe, and you can find him on Facebook. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great podcast for you this morning here. We got my friend, and wanted to get him on for quite some time now, and we've just been kind of missing each other, but we're on today. Tate Hoisington. Tate is from the Gila Valley, the Safford area, and he's got a great story, got a great young family, and actively involved in the ag community also. And we're going to talk about just, kind of stuff that, we do and what he's involved in and so forth. And so, Tate, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Paul. Thank you. Glad to be here. So
You bet. Yeah. You got a long story, so we'll just kind of start, if you want, so people, just get a little familiar with you, and then we'll kind of get into the business stuff and some of the things that you do. And so you were born in
I was born in Durango, Colorado.
Colorado, and high school. What were your activities in high school and so forth?
I graduated from Safford High School. I played a few sports. I played a little bit of soccer and golf. But my big saving grace kind of kept me out of a lot of trouble was the ag program, FFA. Had a lot of success in that program.
And so what were your primary projects?
So projects wise, raising livestock. I rode sheep, hogs, cattle. That's what our fair allowed at the time, and still that's all we allow. So I raised all three. As far as contests, I did parliamentary procedure, livestock judging, horse judging, agronomy. So
Wow,
all over the place.
man, isn't it amazing? The opportunities that are afforded and available for young people, participating in the Future Farmers of America. I mean, you can run the gamut there from leadership, to just down to, skills that, that young people can come out of those program and go right to work somewhere, have those kind of skills. I don't think there's really another program like it in high school available to kids.
Yeah, silly things like parliamentary procedure. At the time, I thought it was a fun contest. We ended up winning the state my freshman year, and were able to compete at the national convention. But I think back now, and it's like, man, that all that knowledge has come in handy. I don't know where else you would learn something like that unless you just went and bought the book. So
Well, yeah, and then even of course I've been on boards and I've been in meetings where certainly the statutes of the association state that they're supposed to follow Robert's Rules of Order, and they don't.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anybody.
They don't. But if you really read their rules, they're supposed to follow. You know what I mean? And so many people, have a real ignorance for that that are involved in some of these boards and that. And yeah, it can be a little bit scary, if you think about it, especially from the liability standpoint. If you're on a board and you're not operating, the way you're supposed to operate. And of course, taking votes in appropriate manner, and, having the, allow the conversation to be monitored, by Robert's Rules of Order. Yeah. I was in an organization, and it scared me to be in that organization, some of the things that we're doing. And so consequently now, I have several friends that are on boards now, and they're actually hiring parliamentarians to come in and monitor the meeting, whether it's on a Zoom call or a live call. And wow, what a great opportunity, for young people that, especially like you say, they do learn that in the Future Farmers of America, and, might have an opportunity to, make some extra income, monitoring some of these meetings. And, kids that
Mhm.
some of the kids, I mean, especially at the national level, I'm sure you're aware of that they're tremendous.
Oh yeah, I've had the privilege of knowing a couple national officers pretty well, and the caliber that it takes to get there is just incredible. Just
Yeah.
incredible people.
Yeah, I'm thankful. I was a state officer, and to this day, I still do business on a regular basis with people that I was involved in. And so, yeah,
Mm.
it sounds like we're both in agreement. We're big fans of the Future Farmers of America. And so,
Yeah.
you come out of high school, you're going to go to college.
So right out of high school, I had plans to go to New Mexico State University, but I ended up going and working a couple years at our family shop in northern Nevada, Winnemucca area. Ended up being a blessing. I ended up meeting my wife up there. Um, Worked there for a couple years and decided I had the opportunity to go back to school. So I went to New Mexico State at that point. Um, Went back down, and my wife followed me. Thank God.
Yeah.
So, um, and then
And
from
so
there,
you go ahead.
I was going to say I ended up graduating from New Mexico State University with a bachelor's degree in agriculture and community development, which is basically an ag teaching degree um, without the teaching certificate.
And so when you come out, what do you do when you come out of college now?
So at that time, my mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer right about the time I was graduating from college, because I had actually started applying for grad school and was going to kind of keep rolling with some of that, and so kind of derailed everything. Ended up moving home, um, and joining the family business at that point. So
And your family business, what was your
is
family business?
so my family has Open Loop Energy. They're here in Stafford. Do a lot of mining support and service work. So.
And so open loop is, what do you provide, services, product to the mine? What would
So
you?
it's primarily a hydraulic repair business,
Okay.
but they do a lot of welding repair, manufacturing, machining, design work, mostly on just big equipment, big machines. So
Just support for the mining industry, the copper mining
mhm.
industry.
It overlaps a lot with construction and farming to some degree. A lot of the same
Yeah,
types of equipment.
perfect. And so then your wife and you now are married at this point in time. She comes to Safford
We
with you.
not at that point. We didn't get married till for a few 2-3 years later. So yeah, but
Okay.
she did come to Safford with me at that point.
Nothing against Safford, but yeah, you got to that's
Yeah,
not a place, as somebody would say, that's not a place you don't go strategically go to, right?
yeah.
It's not by
You have to
anything.
have a reason to be
You
for
have
the
to be a
most part.
reason to
I
go to
mean,
Safford, but it is growing, and it's a nice little community for sure. It's just, one of those communities that you don't just go by, like, Benson or Wilcox, or, because
mhm.
of the interstate, but yeah, a nice little community, and got a nice down home feel to it. Yeah. I've
Yeah, the
enjoyed it.
people.
Yeah. People are
I
wonderful there.
say this about everywhere I've lived, and the things I miss the most has always been the people.
Mhm.
Um,
Sure.
you know, each place is
And
unique,
so
but
you spend a few years in that business, and then, now so you get married, now you have some children.
I have
Talk
a
about
son and a daughter.
a son and a
Keep us
daughter.
going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they are, what'd you say? They're 5 and 7?
Yep.
5
Yeah.
and
So my
7.
son is 7, my daughter's 5. So
Yeah. Boy, and so your son's getting ready to start showing livestock now too?
So yeah, the last few years, my niece and nephew have been traveling with the Sela circuit pretty heavily and done pretty well. And so, age for Sela is 7, so he's been able to do a little bit of that
Oh boy,
this
huh?
last year. So
Yeah. Well, and you think he's going to show what species he going to show?
yeah, he's been showing hogs just because of his age, and he actually did show cattle at the last one.
Hmm.
But we raise some cattle. Me and my wife have a small herd of Managed cattle, and we're pretty proud of what we've been able to accomplish with that. So
That's kind of that's
I hope he'll show cattle.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's a nice, way to get, to show, especially in the project, to show your kids that, to strategize the mating and then to get the calf and then to show the calf and just see the whole thing, play out. And I don't think you could really have a better learning experience than that.
No,
Yeah.
no, good and bad because it doesn't always go the way you think, and
Oh yeah. Yeah.
sometimes
You
it's
want,
better.
you wanting a bull calf and here comes a heifer.
Yeah.
Or you raise one, and then it doesn't turn out, or gets crippled or whatever. It's yeah, that's one of the great things about youth involved in agriculture is not everything. There's learning, of course, when there's success, but then sometimes some of the best lessons are when things don't go exactly like you wanted them to, and to know.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the things about ag kids that give them an advantage in society is things don't always turn out like they're supposed to. And then when they don't, that doesn't mean that the wheels have to come off the wagon. It just means
Mhm.
you regroup and try again,
Mhm.
take a different, angle at it, or, do something different and then go at it again.
Mhm. I'm really passionate about especially county fair level livestock showing, and just all the lessons involved with that. There's so many underlying reasons to do it that people don't even think about half the time, and
Oh,
it's just an incredible program. I think back to when I was doing it, and anybody that took it halfway serious, in my opinion, is successful in life at this point in time. I can't think of a single person that I wouldn't put in that category.
yeah, for sure. The skills, are tremendous, that you get from, being responsible. I think, that's one of the things, another thing too, that, young people that are involved in agriculture, they learn responsibility and they learn consequences early.
Hmm.
And, they're able to see these things play out. And it's not like it's, going to be devastating or terminal if
Hmm.
something doesn't, but there's, consequences. And,
Hmm.
even kids exhibiting, in the show ring, you know, we were talking the other day, a lot of times, for a judge can tell when a young person comes in the ring what kind of work they've done at home.
Hmm.
You're not going to hide some of those things.
Oh, 100%. I equate it to the way I describe it is it's a best early way of mini version of real life in the preparation that goes into it and the planning. What is the outcome you want from this? You can go broke trying to win, or you cannot make the sale trying to cheap out. Like there's so many good lessons designed in all this, and like you said, relative to the amount of work you're putting into it, it's very obvious who does and doesn't. Even though people may not think that it is. Um, taking the losses. There's only one winner. There's a
Hmm.
couple different divisions and a couple of different things you can target. Um, the financial skills, most fairs require them to keep a financial statement of some kind and turn those in, and then all the state requirements from legalities around certain things. And um, there's just a wealth of things you have to learn how to navigate and keep track of. And I love it.
Yeah, no, I've been blessed, over my career, an auctioneering career. I think I've sold every county fair junior sale in the state of Arizona, and I sold the
Hmm.
state fair for years and years, and I sold the Arizona Nationals for years and years. So I've got to, look down, um, which is actually looking up to lots of young people in the sale ring, for years and years, and I'm a big fan. I always tell people, one of my opening statements in, the county fairs is, and I can promise you, the worst kid here in 4-H is the best kid on the street, and I really do
Hmm.
believe that. It's just gives them so much opportunity, and like you say, being accountable too. not only, from the physical aspect that the, steer, hog, lamb, sheep, goat has to have water and feed on a regular basis. And then, there's also to see that there's consequences when you don't water feed
Mhm.
appropriately and so forth like that. Plus, one thing we haven't even brought up is also then the amount of time you're able to spend, with your children,
Oh,
concentrating.
yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing you know, I really want to point out to anybody interested in these kind of things that maybe not be is this isn't just a kid's project.
No.
And I'm going to be blunt and say don't do it if that's your expectation.
Hmm.
You need to be involved as a parent. Doesn't mean do it for them, but you have to be involved.
Yeah, there has to be super, especially, when they're 7 and 8 years old. Those are
Mhm.
times, you do have to monitor things and make sure things are safe and, that they're doing appropriate things. But no, for sure. And it's what a great opportunity to get away from the iPad or the TV and,
Oh
get
yeah.
outside. And it's also healthy for them,
Mhm.
to be out,
Yeah.
with livestock and moving around and being active and then I think one of the greatest experience, that, well, it's been said before, a lot of people think that, in 4-H and FFA that young people raise animals, but really it's kind of the opposite,
Mhm.
the animals are raising good young people. And just like
Mhm.
you alluded to earlier, you know, um, the opportunity, for kids that have been involved in the program, their success rate, I don't know if they've ever kept, good statistics on it, but I would say that it's overwhelmingly, positive, um,
Mhm.
when young people are involved in those projects.
Yeah. And I'm finally getting to an age now where it's fun to see the generational, like how it passes on to the next generation and the kids that I grew up with. Now they're bringing kids, and mine are coming in, and so it's a lot of fun to see that.
Yeah, so I'm turned 60 this past summer, and I've got to see now. I think I'm seeing third for sure, and probably short work. I'll be seeing four generations, and of course, I showed and I exhibited, and of course,
Mhm.
now their family and friends. We see each other, and so yeah, it's a great thing. I'm a big proponent of it, and certainly 4-H and FFA. I think
Mhm.
if every kid, I often say this too. What a blessing it would be if every kid had the opportunity to have an animal project in America.
Oh, that's something I've thought about, and I don't know the right way of doing it. But figuring out how to give more kids opportunities to this. And the reason I say I don't know the right way of doing it is because it is such a commitment. This isn't something that you just wake up one day and go, "This isn't for me." And without families and commitment and support system somewhere, it makes it difficult, because they take space, and it's a big financial investment. But yeah, I've thought about that for a long time is how do you give the kids that are interested more opportunities to do it that may not have, the
Yeah,
resources.
and I think we've seen this change. I've seen this change for sure. About people wanting to be a little more intimate and where their food come from. And their
Mhm.
food and fiber come from. But man, it's amazing, and I know you know this as well as anybody. But the ignorance that our society has as a whole, about where their food and fiber come from is I mean, it's think about this. It's mind-boggling that we would take a young person from K through 12, and then they would not actually know where a tomato comes from
Mhm.
or where
Mhm.
their hamburger comes from.
Mhm. Or
I mean,
milk
really,
comes from the store.
yeah, you know what I mean. I mean, I
Mhm.
remember my daughter one time had a friend over, and she saw a tomato, and she had, I guess, never seen a tomato not sliced in her
Mhm.
life. So she was curious about, she looked at it like it was, some kind of gemstone or something, Oh, and so I just that, and I hear it all the time. And certainly we hear it in the media, because we also have adults now that have graduated from Ivy League schools who have this just crazy ignorance about, how their food arrives at the table or their food arrives at the restaurant. I
Mhm.
don't understand why we can go through, we'll have a young person for that many years and um, not educate them in the fact about something, and think about this. People, most people have 3 meals a day,
Hmm.
and they have all this ignorance around where their food, and of course, then it leads to all kinds of other things. Like you could tell, I could get on a soapbox about this for an
Oh
hour.
yeah, it's yeah. My mind's going a bunch of different directions I think of the silly things like reading a hot dog label that says gluten free, and I'm going,
Yeah.
you guys are manipulating people so bad.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, you know what I mean? Or yeah, just all
yeah.
the yeah, and I mean, they say like, and we again, I don't want to go off too far because I could get I could go down a really dark area, but all this hormonal free and yada yada and stuff like
Hmm.
that, and these people just don't understand. And of course, I understand some of it's marketing and so
Hmm.
forth, and it'd be interesting to see. I try to avoid politics, on this podcast quite a bit, but I am really interested to see, um, what Kennedy's going to do here, as far as
It
nutrition in this country.
Yeah, because it could be a major shift in the way things are looked at, all the way from the supplement industry. You know, we're one of the only countries in the world that a doctor can't tell you to go home and take a multivitamin because they're worried about a lawsuit. Things like that are just crazy to me, and so it'll be interesting to see if any of that changes. If anybody's really going to put some pressure on it, I think it'd be him.
Well, and then I think, I really do think, and again, I don't want to get going too much on one way or another, but I think there's going to be so much change that, that Trump, feels like he's been entrusted or in charge or whatever he feels like, to make changes. And I think for that reason, I think, whether it's good or bad, and the jury's going to be out here for a while. I think there are
Mhm,
going to be some changes, and I feel the compassion, from Kennedy, and the fact that, especially if you listen to kind of his succession speech, when he pulled away from running for president. Man, he talked about how concerned he was about young people, and
mhm,
not only physically but mentally. Young people are not healthy, and they're not in good places in our society, and it hasn't been that long ago that it wasn't like that.
mhm.
I mean, I go back and I look at my high school pictures, and I've always kind of been, a little on the thicker side, or husky is what they used to say when I was growing up. But if you look at our school pictures, most of the children, are thin, or what you would call, kind of normal weighted. And today, you'll see kids coming out of school, and there's obviously something's changed.
Mhm. Well, obviously there's a lot more to it, but I truly believe it goes back to something you were talking about earlier, and just how removed we've gotten from the outdoors and farms and everything else. And I say that in the context of, as we've have less and less small family farms, um, the kids are less and less outdoors doing things and moving around. And you know, I, I believe there's probably a nutritional element to it too, as far as
Hmm.
how we're creating these things. Um, but I
Well,
truly believe probably the biggest thing is just the amount of movement that we're doing.
yeah. Well, one thing I've become I've tried to, I'm trying to work on my eating habits, and so forth. And one thing I've noticed, that just the marketing that comes through TV and through social media is pretty incredible amount of money that's spent, trying to get you to, eat a
Oh,
pizza or get an ice cream, or,
well, and
just,
even on the health side, it's wild because what's snake oil, what's not, and
mhm.
marketing on so much of that. They're trying to sell fixes in a bottle, and there's obviously people that have different issues or different struggles, whether that's genetics or hormones or whatever going on, that makes things more difficult for them. And there isn't just a simple solution like so much of this marketing says. And you were talking more on the sales side, pressure from the bad stuff, and it's absolutely there. But marketing in general, especially with social media nowadays, is just um, incredible and out of hand. I don't know how else to say that. And I say out of hand just because it's so much information to digest.
Well,
and
and
and for
the
people to
thing was,
sort through and yeah,
well, one thing too, I mean, you see all these things that come up on social media, and we could go down another rabbit hole. But you look at them, and then you just wonder now how much of it's factual that you just read.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
No,
how do you
you
know?
throw anything out there.
Yeah, and then what's crazy is some people run with that as the gospel.
Hmm.
And when you go back, and that's why I've even got to where I don't really share things on social media much until I'm 100% sure of the validity of that.
Hmm.
Um, just because I've shared stuff before that I go back and found out wasn't true, or
Yeah.
had been kind of a hyperbole, of somebody's perspective or what their agenda, and so you got to be
Hmm.
really cautious about that. So yeah, no, so we're talking agriculture, and we're getting back, certainly our diets, extremely important. I think one thing that's positive, that we see that you know people are starting, and what's even amazing, and we'll talk about, I think it's one of the precursors to why we see these high elevated cattle prices is I think more people are eating protein and consuming beef, more than they ever have, from the standpoint that not only the way they feel, but then also the health wise for them, being right weighted and so forth. And
Hmm.
then the recognition now that even you'll see doctors even, starting to recognize that, for a long time our society's had this really high elevated, insulin levels in people, causes people to not be right weighted. And so I think that's that'll be interesting to see long term how that plays out.
Yeah. Yeah. It will be. Um, that's the unique thing about individuals is we're individuals, and each person's going to be a little bit different.
Well,
But
sure,
you're
genetic.
right. Yeah. And you're right, though. I mean, the protein has been a huge trend the last few years, and it's funny. There's a YouTube video, and I can't remember the name of it, but it basically it's kind of a skit, funny video of the nutritional food trends over the years, and it starts way back in like the 50s, and there's this guy comes crawling out of the closet, and the guy's trying to eat his breakfast, and he tells him, "Oh no, don't eat the eggs. Those are bad for
Mhm.
you."
Yeah.
He disappears and comes back 10 years later, and now it's the bread, and now it's the bacon, and by the end of it he comes out and goes, "Wow, well, we learned we really have no idea, and you just need to exercise."
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's not that complicated because all we have to do is, I mean, we have a window of time when we were probably healthier. And I
Hmm.
think you go back to that, like I told you, I grew up, late 60s and early 70s. And if you will look at school pictures and that, you'll see that
Hmm.
kids were, it seemed to be had the appearance that they were healthier. Of course, they were not eating as much processed food, and like you said earlier, they probably were either out riding their bike or they were engaged in some
Hmm.
kind of activity. And if they were on a farm or a ranch, well, yeah, for sure they were working and doing stuff.
It's When I was in college, I got on a pretty big health kick and got into CrossFit pretty heavy and different things. And at the time, the paleo diet was huge, and you hear the carnivore diets and different things. And the stance I took, because I didn't really want to cut certain things out of my diet, it was if I had to prepare it, it was probably fine. And that has done me well for a long time. And I'm not
Yeah,
perfect at it. I mean, I eat crap I shouldn't, but um,
it's hard when
I
you
mean,
got
that's been
kids
my,
too, and
yeah,
they're being marketed to, McDonald's
yeah.
or whatever it is. Yeah,
But
I
that's been my
like.
general mindset. It's
Yeah,
just if I have to prepare it, you know.
correct. Well, I listened to a guy and he says if it has more than three ingredients, and especially if you can't enunciate them, probably should
Mhm.
turn it away.
Yeah, that's
So,
truth.
yeah, so coming out of that, yeah, we're going, for sure we're definitely fans of 4-H and FFA and the importance, and that leads into um, just all the essence about agriculture life, and
Hmm.
we're so blessed to be involved in that and so forth. So let's talk about your little. I'd like to talk a little bit about breeding club calves, and are you
Hmm.
artificial insemination, say artificial inseminating? How are you?
Yeah, yeah. So I've actually done a little bit of embryo work as well.
Oh, okay. That's what I was going to ask also.
Yeah. So basically, the basic cows I have, most of them have been through embryos I purchased, and at one point or another. So I'm pretty proud of what we've been able to put together um, so far. So, and yeah, obviously on those, we can AI some ourselves and do that stuff here. And so we do that pretty heavily. Um,
And so I guess you have conversations with our good friend and fellow podcaster on this podcast, Dean Fish, huh?
yeah, no, Dean's a good friend of mine. My kids actually call him Uncle Dean. So
I should start calling him Uncle Dean.
yeah,
Yeah.
he'd like
No,
that.
Dean he's a wealth of knowledge,
Hmm.
as far as, doing, breeding work and so forth. And
Mm.
I'm sure he's a
He's
nice
been
asset for you to have.
he's been a good friend. So
He's a good guy to a lot of people for sure. And so, have you mated, strategized and mated one and now got him to the show ring yet?
yeah, we've had several go through the show ring last few years. Um, my parents got into it a little bit when I was in high school. Um, kind of a funny story. I was actually at the Arizona Nationals judging livestock, and my mom and little brother came over, and they ended up going to the heifer sale. And so they bought a couple heifers out of that sale and kind of got them started years ago. And so there's been a gradual and a couple different facets through some of this, but
Yeah. I sold that heifer sale for years, so they probably bought them through me.
they
So that's
probably
pretty
did.
cool.
So
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing now. What's changed in your life here lately?
So this last year, honestly, had a lot of changes for me and my family, and I have a couple partners on a podcast that we have called The Everyday Leader. Matt Harrington and Drew Norton kind of co-hosts with me on that, and with that, we focus on everyday leadership and the idea that everyone is a leader and should embrace and kind of lead into that, and we all have leadership opportunities every day, whether that's with our family, our kids, spouse, coworkers, siblings. And when we can understand that and intentionally use that rather than just kind of letting it be, our influence just kind of happen however we want, because we're not really thinking about what we're doing or how that affects other people, or um, how much that can impact your life, and kind of start the wheels turning to, wow, okay, I am a leader, and what can I do with that now? What are the next steps to go from here? Do I take that supervisor's job? Do I, you know, um, how do I show up to my family at home? All those things that can be asked around that. And so um, we have a weekly podcast we do around that conversation and bring on guests similar to what you're doing here, and have some really fun conversations.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Excuse me. And so it sounds like you guys, one of your goals is to be intentional. Is that right?
mhm.
To make sure that you're there and engaged, especially in family.
Well, it encourage individuals to live like leaders every day, and
Mhm.
just accept that we do have influence on other people.
Amen. Yeah, for sure. That's pretty cool. And I'll put a link out to your podcast, so
Okay.
people that are listening here will be able to grab on there and go listen to it. And are you on all platforms in YouTube
Yeah.
also?
Yep. Yeah, we're
Cool,
just
cool,
about
cool.
everywhere. So
And tell me again, who's on the podcast with you?
Matt Harrington and Drew
I
Norton.
know Matt. I don't know Drew,
Mhm.
but I do know Matt.
So
Yeah.
um, Drew's uncle is Randy Norton, who's the extension agent here in Graham County.
Okay.
He's got Eric Norton, another uncle that he had that worked for a seed company for years and years and years.
So you guys are
He's
all Aggie
he's
boys, kind of.
yeah, kind of. Drew grew up in Duncan, so he, he came from the rural world as well.
That's a
So
place. That's a place you go to intentionally.
Yeah.
You just don't go by Duncan.
E- Even more so than Safford, probably.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
For sure, for sure. And so then one thing that we talked about that I'm interested for sure in you is talking about you're a pilot and
mhm.
flying, and so let's talk a little bit about that. And what first of all, what made you want to get a pilot license?
So my older brother has been one for shoot. He got his. He might only been about 18 when he got his. So he's had it for, I don't know, 25, nearly 30 years. His pilot's license, and rode around with him for years, work stuff and different things. And he finally, I can't remember how exactly it happened, but he finally said something one day, and I was like, well, yeah, I'll just go do it. So I've had mine now for 8 years. So
And at that time, did he have his own plane?
we had one through the family business at Open Loop. Um, and so yeah, we because we have a location here in Safford as well as Winnemucca, and we would fly back and forth from there.
Oh yeah, that saved a lot of time, huh?
It's
That's
a 16-hour drive otherwise.
that's gonna say that's a pretty good hike from Safford to Winnemucca.
Yeah, and
And
it's
so that would how long? What was the flight? How long would it take to fly it?
about 4 hours.
Yeah, well,
So
that's
yeah, it's still pretty good trek.
quite a savings. And so, you decided, to get your pilot license, and where did you do your most of your flight testing in Safford?
Yeah, I did. There was an older gentleman at the time, and he may still be doing it. He was out of the Alamogordo area originally, but he was working down here for Ponderosa Aviation, um, helping train a lot of their younger mechanics and stuff. And so he would do flight lessons. So
And so, I always like to ask people, what was it like that first time when you go by yourself?
that's it's an experience. It's very quiet, and so like for me, I sit there and talk to myself. I just talk myself through everything I was doing and just talked, because when the instructor's with you, usually that's what they do is talk to you to distract you and make help you think about things. And usually it's just casual conversation that they're having, and um, kind of keep people from getting too nervous, I suppose. And um, so yeah, that's what I did by myself, just talk to myself.
And so your first solo flight was there in the Safford area,
Yeah,
and then you came back and landed.
yeah,
That must be a good
uh,
feeling when you stop that plane for the first time on
yeah,
your own.
yeah. So typically, too, what they'll do is have you do. Well, what I did is they had to do 3 laps, and so yeah, you do the first one, and then it's like, okay, here we go again. And so yeah, by the time you're done, though, it feels good.
And how long? What's the longest flight you did by yourself or with your family, or that you've been?
That probably at 3-4 hour range, like at a in a leg. Uh,
Have you done the Safford to Winnemucca yourself?
Completely by myself?
Yeah,
No, I
or
think my brother's
with your
always been
family?
with me.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I think my brother's. I've usually done it with him, just
yeah.
the way it's worked out. Um,
And so, are
it,
you able from time to time take your family with you too?
yeah, we have. Um, so,
Just go on little short jaunts.
mhm.
Yeah, I have a friend. He likes to just get up once in a while. And he'll get he'll decide he wants to go eat breakfast in Sedona, and so he'll
Yeah,
just jump and go to
it's
Sedona. And
it's funny. Some of these airports like that, it's kind of a, I don't know what you want to call it, hip thing to do, but they'll have the little restaurant breakfast joints, and pilots love to fly in to
yeah,
get breakfast. So
it's a
it's fun.
great, yeah, it's a great idea. Really, get down for a little bit and enjoy your breakfast and so forth. And yeah, it's cool. And so now tell me what you're doing now as far as business wise.
So this last year, my oldest brother and I purchased sun pumps here in Safford from Jim Allen. Um, Jim had started sun pumps back in the 80s originally. Kind of chopped up there a little bit because he had sold it at one point to Photocom and had a no compete. And then after that, he came back and basically restarted the exact same company, and which which worked out okay because they had kind of let the product go anyways and weren't going to do anything with it. And so he was one of the original people utilizing solar technology for water wells, specifically on ranches. I actually found an old promo video he did in like 1987. It has Alan Day on it from the Lazy Bee back then using he was at the time he was using pump jacks, like an oil pump jack, a
Mm-hmm.
little one hooked up to a solar panel and running them that way out on the Lazy Bee. So I just threw that on their YouTube channel the other day. If anybody wants to see that, it's pretty neat.
Oh, is
So
that right? A
yeah,
little history there, huh?
yeah.
And um, I guess we probably could have a whole episode, just talking about pumps and especially utilizing solar. It seems like that has really expanded. That business has really grown in the last for sure 20 years.
Hmm.
Um, I assume everything about them has become more stable or predictable as far as the
The
sales and so
equipment.
forth. Yes.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean the cost on the panels has come down. Um, the longevity. I mean, there's still somebody goes out and shoots your solar panels. There's not much you can do about that. But as far as
Hmm.
just natural events, yeah, the technology is so much better than it had been in the past. It's pretty incredible what they can do.
Yeah, I was seeing the other day, just a small cell that supposedly was providing quite a bit of energy.
Hmm.
And another thing I saw the other day too is you know there there's a company out there that's building these panels now that will basically take over as the roof of the home. So
Yeah,
the
like the
panels become
shingles.
correct.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's they're doing some wild stuff with it. And being a guy from ag, I hate when I see a field turn into solar panels. I'll be the first to admit, like I don't love that. And I also can acknowledge that, man, when you can hook a solar panel to a pump out in the middle of nowhere where you would basically have no other options, whether it be a windmill or a generator. Solar panels are pretty maintenance. Like you don't have to worry about them. Like
Hmm.
they just
Well, and
they just do
especially
their
in
thing.
Arizona, we have
Hmm.
abundant amount of sun, and so just the concept of it, yeah, and when yeah, and so for sure, you think about it, if you had you know, like when I was growing up, my grandfather, on his farm, all his pumps were diesel pumps, and
Hmm.
those things would be screaming, 24 hours a day and
Yeah.
so forth. And they were none of those had any kind of emission components to them.
No.
And so,
No.
I mean, it was just, and then of course, when they broke down,
Yeah.
and you were down, you didn't have water. And so, what a great concept, to now start to captivate a abundant natural resource that we have in, sunlight. And,
Hmm.
just it's amazing. I even see now a lot of the other day I was watching a gentleman, he was installing a gate and he was putting a solar component to the automatic gate.
To the
And
automatic gate. Yeah.
yeah, it just, I mean, he didn't have to put electricity out there, didn't have to run wires out there.
Hmm.
It's amazing, for sure. And so,
The ba-
go ahead.
I was just going to say the battery technology has, you even think about just your drills and stuff at home, what it was 10 years ago. You still had your core drill just because you knew you were going to run out or something wasn't going to work right. And you look at the tools you can buy now and phew, you can go all day on a battery or two.
Hmm.
And, that same technology is affecting, whether that's a gate opener or off grid systems of any kind. Um,
For sure. My experience in the auction business, I sold, corded tools forever, any saw, drill, whatever had a cord to it. And now you find that those just don't hardly bring any more money
mhm,
because everything's operated on battery.
mhm.
And the power, and like you said, the longevity of the battery now is so much greater. It's incredible. And so, consequently, yeah, if you have a corded drill or a corded, circular saw or whatever, it's just not worth much anymore. And the
Yeah.
amount of power they have, I saw a guy the other day breaking down a semi wheel, and he was using,
Mhm.
he was
Cordless.
using, yeah, he was using not
Yeah.
only cordless, but he was using, you know, the, was taking the lug nuts off. Man, that unit was strong. You could see that,
Hmm.
it had plenty. And I asked him about it. He said, "Yeah, if you don't hold that thing right, it'll torque your wrist."
Yeah.
Just
No,
the amount of power that they have.
I was drilling a hole, and this was just a little half-inch drive gun, and yeah, it would caught a couple of times. I knew it.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So, what's your function then? In your pump company.
So, it's still pretty new. We really just took over the beginning of this year, and so trying to get the wheels kind of spooled up. I've been probably behind most of the marketing stuff. If anybody's seen that, kind of kick up on that end, um, and just trying to figure out how we're going to go back and kind of be more forward in the market. I come from a service background, and so that's what we want to be. We want to be good service. Figure out how we can be the best partners, easy to do business with. That's what we want to be, and supply a product and a service that people need and want. And so I look at the ag industry, especially like you said, ranchers here in Arizona, farmers. Um, you know, we have a pool pump line as well, so people don't think about it much, but you think about places like California and Hawaii, Florida, where energy costs are through the roof. Um, People are putting solar panels on their pool pumps and saving a fair amount of money. But um, I'm a service company guy at heart. That's what we want to provide is a service that people can count on. So
And also, so do you do all types of pumps, not just solar though? You guys still do
yeah,
electric
so
pumps
we'll
and
do
stuff?
some AC pumps and stuff. It Especially when you get into more, I don't want to say complicated, but systems that need to do a little more, we can absolutely help out with that.
Hmm.
When you look at just a standard well pump, I mean, everybody from Tractor Supply to Home Depot has one. Um, and so, yeah, we do have those. We can mix and match. I mean, depending on how deep you need to go and different things. There's a bunch of variables when it comes to, um, what pump with what motor you mate. So.
And so do you guys also service agriculture wells?
As far as like a just a service, uh, like a pump
Well,
service company, not. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. So I was just like, so if a farmer had a drinker or whatever, you guys service that.
So they have in the past. We don't currently have that offering, and that's something we're likely going to get into
Okay.
again. We've had a lot of people express interest in that, especially the ranchers. Right now, the landscape of that's changed even a little bit, where you're seeing more and more guys working in town and going out, which it's gradually been going that way anyways. But basically, the feedback we're saying is, man, if I got a drinker that goes down on a Monday and I can't get there to Saturday, I want to be able to call somebody that can go get me going. And
Hmm.
so,
Yeah, especially, yeah, in Arizona,
mhm,
how crucial water is. Uh,
mhm,
yeah, for sure. I could see where that be a nice, component of your business long term.
mhm.
And so from time to time, then will you replace, either some form of a static pump or um, a windmill with a
Mhm,
solar pump to it?
mhm. Yeah, there's been a lot of windmills over the years replaced. You'd be surprised at how many of them still are out there, um, going. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
those things still come up. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see long term, how that plays out. And
mhm,
certainly, I could see where it's a real benefit to a rancher. Plus, then too, a lot of these ranchers now have these water monitoring systems, where they
mhm.
can monitor, what level of water is, either in a tank or in a holding area, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that is without giving away too much. That's something we're going to dive off into pretty heavy, um, with some features that. So some of the existing ones out there right now are subscription based. Like basically, you're paying a cell phone subscription per device, and so
Hmm.
we think we know how we can do it and not have
Circumvent
to
that.
do it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, that'll be interesting. Well, certainly when you get that done, come back on the podcast and we'll talk about it and let
yeah.
ranchers
So
and farmers know how, what you can do for them. And certainly, I'll try to put a link to your pump company too. And so, do you guys also service pumps? You guys will pull
yeah.
pumps up and.
So we're one of the few companies around this. Well, so we manufacture a lot of our own pumps, and so we do offer repairs on a lot of those, exchanges on a lot of that kind of stuff. So, with the idea people need water, animals need water. We want to keep them going. There's a few of the big name brands that basically you run them till they fail and you can't fix them. Like, that's just
Mhm.
the way those pumps are. Uh, the majority of everything we sell is repairable,
Okay. Well,
and we
that's
do
cool.
that.
Yeah. And so, what's your service area? How far? What do you call your area?
So obviously, being here in Southern Arizona, he's done a lot of business with the local ranchers and farmers. Into New Mexico, he's done a ton. But he also was doing business with guys all over the country, all over the world. I mean, they've been to Africa, South America, villages doing different things, and so there is a little bit of a dealer network established. Um,
Well, cool. Well, it sounds like you got plenty going on, and I guess I better let you get back to work or get to work. And I'm sure somebody young, your kids want to have breakfast and so forth. And so I appreciate you coming on this morning. I'm glad we had this conversation. I've been wanting to have it for a while, and certainly let me know. If you want to come back on, you want to talk about, anything that you have going on in your pump business. We'd
yeah,
certainly like
no,
to have you
I
back on.
I think at some point here in the future, where, like I said, it's still relatively new, as far as the transition goes. We've got some pretty cool ideas in the works, and we're gonna start making the wheels spin here, and so we're excited for that. So,
Perfect.
anybody interested in that, get a hold of us.
Yeah, I'll
We've been
provide a
here.
link. I'll provide a link to your company for everyone if they want to get on there and you want a solar pump or you want a
Mhm.
pump. Tell me one little thing, and I guess in your experience, what is a recommendation that people would have, to maintain their pumps? What is something that you see on a regular basis that people don't do properly that if they did, certainly could mitigate some losses or break breaking down
Mhm. So
as far as
obviously,
maintenance.
we talked about panels a lot. Obviously, damage is a thing. But even just spraying them off, getting the dust off them once in a while, is a big deal. Outside of that, the things that make your pumps run more often than they need to, whether that be leaky drinkers, leaky pipes somewhere, um, the pumps can handle it. It's not going to be drastic. But the other things that affect pump life is, how clean is your well, and that's not so much of a maintenance thing, but it is something that affects the life. If you've got a dirty, sandy well, it's just harder on the equipment, and that's
Hmm.
just kind of what it is. Um, we occasionally, I don't know that it's necessarily a maintenance thing, but we've seen controllers come in with, the electrical connections weren't in there nice and snug, and so over time they causes some issues. Um, Biggest thing I can say though is just, they are electronics, they are mechanical, like they do wear out over time. They don't last forever, and so you do need to check on them once in a while. Just make sure things look as they should.
And so, do you guys provide a maintenance program where people can have you come out and look at stuff and make
It's
sure that
it's
things are
something
operating?
that'll, as we get back into the service side of things, that's something that'll be offered is with that as well.
Perfect. Well, maybe you jump back on here. We'll talk about pumps. We'll have a good
Yeah.
conversation about pumps one day. Well, listen, Tate, I'm gonna let you go. Um, We appreciate you coming on today, and it was a good conversation we had. We covered a lot of ground.
Yeah,
I
talked for
appreciate
a
you
long time.
coming
I
on.
feel like there's
Yeah.
probably more, but
Oh, I could talk for, but anyways, we could go back. We went. I roped it in there several times where I could spend 2 hours with you. But anyways, it's great, and look forward to seeing you soon. And you guys stay at it and keep those kids involved in youth projects and so forth. And so appreciate you coming on this morning. All right.
okay.
Well, ladies and
Thank you.
gentlemen, that was a good conversation we had this morning with Tate Hoisington from the Gila Valley area. And I'll put a link into his pump company. So if you want to talk with him, certainly you can look them up and help you solve some of your water issues. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, on behalf of the Western Ag Life podcast, this is Paul Ramirez. And remember, if it's Western, it's probably us.
Thank you for listening to the Western Ag Life podcast. Tune in again for another great